the first one I've seen this year.
I can recall this year. We don't have heaps of other stuff to really talk about, so we'll get straight into it. Check out rugbyleaguemerch.com to buy some fine hats, to buy some of these sexy not that sexy shirt, that one. And everything else going on there. Check if you're watching on YouTube, you can also subscribe to Spotify. If you're watching on Spotify, you can also subscribe on YouTube, as well as Apple, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, etc., etc. Hopefully you're listening to it there now, and SoundCloud, obviously. So, we kicked off last... Anything else you want to talk about, Ollie? You've been away for a while. You want to get off your chest?
Not really, other than, well, before we get into the round, a quick summary. I think we are starting to see the competition, at least I'm not going to say for the whole year because obviously form changes, but I think we're getting an indicator now over the next 10 to 12 weeks, the teams that'll be doing well and the teams that won't be. The first couple of weeks obviously very close. Competition probably still a bit more close than it has been in previous years, but we're starting to get those big score lines. So I think we're getting the
Still think it's probably only the
I think you're being sequestered.
Probably really only the top 2 or 3 teams from at the top and at the bottom that have really sort of gone away from the rest of the competition. I think, yeah, you're looking at a big clump of probably 12 to 14 that are realistically can beat anyone week in, week out.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone in that middle patch that you would guarantee a top 8 spot. First of all, because everyone else is in the same boat and probably up to the same level. I think it's fantastic, and it also wouldn't surprise. Obviously, there's probably 2 teams, maybe 2.5, but Dragons have won 2 games. So
no, I think you'll see probably over the next 5 to 6 weeks there will be a few teams where the class will start to rise a little bit and the fitness will get back into some of these teams, and
we've seen,
you may start to see a different
what's exposed
sort of
now
edge.
Even like they've been competitive in a half, but then the back end of the game they get blown away. I think more of that's going to start coming into it. But, yeah, anything else you want to add?
Well, one thing I've noticed too is that how many times over the past few years has one team sort of surprisingly shot out, not necessarily above the rest, but far above expectations, and they talk to the coaches and everyone around the team. They speak about how hard they trained and how fit the team's got. Well, it's been very close so far this year, and you talk to a lot of the coaches and they say, yeah, we absolutely whipped them during pre-season. So I now think we're getting to that stage where...
Except Peyton, who actually made a point of saying he didn't whip them.
Yeah, well, that might actually be the strategy going... Well, that could be a strategy kind of going forward, because now I think that's no longer a way to get a strategic advantage to start the season, because it's become such a norm now that teams are going to be fit. Probably at least half the comp's going to be fit and raring to go at the start of the season every year now, and it's probably going to be more, you're probably more going to see standouts the other way, teams that probably aren't performing as well maybe as we expected them to, maybe because they didn't train as hard and weren't as fit in the
It's also probably
pre-season.
a result of the expanded pre-season that now teams took those trials a little bit more seriously than ever in the past. A lot of teams played full team right through, if not right through, 60 minutes, as opposed to 20 here, 20 there, or whatever it may have been. So,
I suppose for a lot of players too, did bring up the pre-season. Well, that started early to mid-February, and a lot of players played in the World Cup, especially the Australian players, that ended in November. So you've only got really a couple of months there as well where they're off. There's that shorter time period as well. It's
probably got something to do with the consistency of the skill level as well. Like, you've seen teams be really skillful at different times, but I don't yet to see, apart from maybe Brisbane, somebody put together a full 70 or 80 minutes of skillful, consistently skillful football. So
you can see
there's still been a lot of errors in a lot of teams.
Starting to put some together, but still, yeah, like you didn't know when what Brisbane have done. Penrith probably have only played 40 good minutes of footy this year, really. 40 Penrith standard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Footy, I mean, so.
But you're really not looking for that until probably Origin time anyway. So we've still probably got a couple of weeks left of some teams being a bit scratchy for a few more weeks. But
you're noted up today, Ollie?
I'm noted up to the gills. So I changed a little bit. I've only done some notes as the game was going on, because I have to admit, for a couple of them I was going for, I thought, screw it, I just want to watch the game. So fair bit of it I've gone back. I've watched the highlights after watching the games. So
nice work, Velvet. So Let's get into it. We kick off with the... Just so I know when to throw to you, that's all. Nurse you back into it. softly off the bench. 28-20, we kicked off Thursday night with the Roosters, eventually getting over the line against Para, and on another night they probably win 58-20, but here they were. Para scrambles pretty good in the first half, but Tupou on another night probably scores 9 tries, but
yeah, Roosters probably had they had a hell of a lot of opportunities to put points on, to be honest, and they were a bit scratchy at times. Didn't really probably fulfil didn't fill up their point tally like they should have, but they got there in the end. Had 5 tries to 3 out of 5 conversions for the Roosters, and 3 out of 3 for Parramatta. 1 out of 1 penalty attempts for both sides. 34 out of 40 sets played, 26 out of 34. 7 line breaks to the Roosters, 3 to Parramatta. 27 tackle busts to 23, 10 offloads from both teams. A forced dropout from both sides. No 40-20s, 337 tackles played, 310. 2 ruck infringements to 3, 1 inside the 10 against Parramatta. 5 penalties conceded from both teams. 6 errors to 10. 2 sin bins for Parramatta. Tupou with 94 Supercoach points. Paulo with 87. Gutho with 71. It looks like I've missed something there. Yes, the top tacklers and top meters.
Top tackles. Let's have a look here. Top tackles would be for Parramatta, Madison made 41, Hopgood 40, Campbell Gillard 30, and for the other blokes, my phone wants to scroll. There we go.
Well.
Cheeky bugger. 43 to Nat Butcher, 36 to Egan Butcher, 33 to the Cheese. Oliver, have at it.
Well, just quickly, you brought up how both Butcher brothers were tackling their asses off. A bit later on, there are a couple of brothers in terms of tackling that I want to address because it's going too far and I might have to call child services retroactively, but we'll get to it. Okay. Don't worry, I'm not insane. But for this game, first of all, I think...
Parramatta... Brayley's?
Yeah. Well, the brothers that tackle well. If it's not the Butchers, probably the Brayley's. But
stands to reason, I suppose.
Yeah, probably the first... For most of the first half, I thought Parramatta were pretty pedestrian. And I've got the stat back again. The opponent, play the balls in the opponent's 20. Parramatta had 1 play the ball in the Roosters' 20 in the first 32 minutes of the game. The Roosters had 11. I've got this as a recurring stat sort of throughout, but I do think it is sort of interesting to maybe take note of so we can sort of see how games shift and how certain teams are going during periods. But first of all, I want to give a rap to Luke Keary because his support play was exceptional in this game. Even when he wasn't scoring, getting his team in positions by setting it up as well. I think he was key for the Roosters in this game, and it was just that sort of flow and momentum the Roosters had throughout. And some of Parramatta's edge defending, I mean, seriously, both Sivo and Penasini, when Simonson went off, I forget, was it Tupou who scored on... Was it Tupou on the left edge? I think it was, but there were genuinely some times during that game where 10 metres in, and I know this is a consistent problem with Parramatta, but there's a reason why the Roosters went to the edges multiple times, and it wasn't just one edge. But then I think it was when Penasini scored for Parramatta though, and Tupou had come off his line, and I've sort of taken note of this because you see the difference. Okay, Tupou comes in, obviously, because the play's down the other end of the field, about 10 metres out from the line. But when they shift it back, you see him instantly moving, and he at least gets there. Yeah. You do not see that from a Sivo or a Penasini in that situation at all, and I don't think Simonson was much easier.
I'm not exaggerating. Tupou could have scored 4 tries in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, slipped over 3
He fell over twice. One got thrown over his head into touch. One was thrown behind him.
Yep.
And I think Gutho came over Penasini came over and dragged him into touch on one. So it could have, that was in the first 20 minutes. He could have had 4 or 5. And then I think he could have another 2 in the second half. So, yeah, it was exposed. And poor... But that all being said, I thought he was fantastic in what he did. Tupou was outstanding.
Oh, he was one of the best on the field.
But flattered. And the other bloke I mentioned is, and again, flattered playing Parramatta because that's how they up and in. But Paulo's a different player at South. He's outstanding. He's absolutely brilliant. Fantastic finisher. I can't recall him making an error, which was the big issue with his game at South. And he's busting tackles.
And he's starting to take that drop back in, 45-degree angle back into the teeth of defence as well, which he was never doing at South.
Well, there was that one try, wasn't it, where typically a winger would just get the ball with the momentum and just try to cross over in the corner, but he gets the ball and straight away, just straight back in. I think
that was the first one, and he gave it back to Hutchinson to score on the right.
That's right,
corner. Yeah, that was fantastic bit of play. The early sin bin obviously hurt Parramatta with Penasini, professional foul there. And I don't think he was that far offside, to be honest, but realistically, it's a professional foul. And
I saw much worse.
Call.
A dead set. The Melbourne game was much worse.
Yeah. Oh, that was scrappy.
It was actually, but in terms of them policing that was embarrassing at points in the Melbourne game, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, Roosters were well on top, and they were pushing through the middle, I thought, of the Parramatta side. They actually dominated Parramatta's middle for large parts of this game. And I'll get to that when I get to my man of the match, I think. But we'll speak about that shortly. And then they started going side to side. And as you mentioned, there was some brilliant cover defence from Parramatta. And they did really well to scrap and scramble for as long as they did, because they realistically probably should have been 30 or 40 down at half time. As the Roosters had all the ball, all the field position, and they were stretching Parramatta consistently. It ended up being a very gutsy effort to keep it as close as they did for as long as they could. And not completely get belted, realistically. Roosters, I thought, shut up shop in the last 10 minutes, which probably flattered Parramatta as well. This could have been like a 28-4 job, but it ended up being 28-20. So they shut up shop there for the last 10 minutes. There's really strong forward performances from the Roosters, and probably as cohesive performance I've seen out of the two halves since they've played together, to be honest. They were actually playing together for a change. They were looking for each other, and Keary's supporting back through the middle when Walker was punching a few holes in the middle of the field, which was really good for them. Cheese got out and did some of his really good work. In that combination you can see building with Radley, and he's actually building a nice one with Collins as well, with that short, hard line just off the hip. And they're working pretty well together there.
Which both I forecast coming into the year. Just took 6 weeks together.
I thought the Paris forwards were pretty average, to be honest, apart from one or two of them. Dory, I thought Dory was good off the bench.
He's been good a few times too.
But he just keeps coming. He runs flat out just about every time he touches the ball.
I thought Romeo Greg was overperformed for what we'd expect from him.
Yeah, he got a bit bashed out of the game though.
First 20, he's always going to struggle back end, given he's a 20-minute player.
I don't think he didn't put much in after his first stint, but it was a decent first stint. Maddo and Hopgood were the best of their forwards, easily. The halves tried hard, but Dylan Brown was good again. He outshone Moses pretty clearly, I thought. And Penasini and Gutho were the best of the back five. Apart from, if Penasini doesn't get sent for 10, he has a real good game, to be honest. It just takes away from a bit of his performance there, getting sent to the sin bin. But, they were all good, the Roosters. Apart from Teddy, obviously, with the HIA after 15 minutes, that'll wreck your night. And Turpin only got 10 or 15 minutes, so he didn't really have much of an impact on the game. But everybody else did have an impact. Mr. Fix-It, Hutchinson was good, I thought. Suwali and Paulo were quite good, especially since Suwali got moved back to fullback. But I think he's given a few more raps than he probably deserved, to be honest. I didn't see any huge
let's be honest,
performance out of him going back to fullback.
Because Manu's playing
but
this
they were
week,
blowing smoke right up him.
He just played. He played how he'd play on the wing.
Yeah, no, he did.
Joey Manu is a golden boot winner. A dead set superstar fullback would probably play fullback for
both of our clubs.
14 teams in the comp.
Like there was one nice spot where he backed up through the middle.
It's actually farcical to even put them in the same.
Like he wasn't punching holes. He wasn't linking up with players. No. He was just sort of filling that gap, and he did well enough to fill that gap. But I think he got a few more plaudits than he probably deserved.
Like a clever try assist, but there's nothing happening by that sort of game, but by that sort of time.
Walker and Keary were good, as I mentioned. I thought Cheese.
Walker, now just to mention Sam Walker, it's not a knock, but he throws that rainbow ball too often.
Yeah, especially in the wet.
And I understand because you're playing Parramatta and there's acres of space both sides. But there's probably 3 occasions if he just gives it to the bloke outside him, they get to it anyway. Yeah. And by that time, Sivo's lugged in again and the winger's walking over. So,
Brandon Smith and Wirra Hargraves were good in the middle. But Tupu, Butcher and Collins were absolutely brilliant. Yeah. They made a massive impact on this game. Nat Butcher, Collins and Daniel Tupu.
And Jared.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, but I don't think he didn't stand out like Collins did.
I think he's made a difference. So being
he did make, yeah, absolutely.
But since he's come back, that's a different team. But Lindsay Collins is. I know he was in and out all last year, but he's come back in outstanding form this year. He was even when they were going no good, he was carrying them, and he'll be rightfully a starting.
He was consistently busting holes. He was the best player on the field for mine. I thought he was fantastic. The impact he had when he was carrying the ball through the middle of the field, and he was brushing blokes like RCG off and
he stopped some of the dumb shit he does as well.
And he was belting blokes in defence as well. I thought he was tremendous in this game.
Well, just on the Roosters forwards as a whole, and I don't think we really see this too much, or we don't really take note of it, but every starting forward for the Roosters ran over 100 metres and made at least 30 tackles. Usually you'll see a couple of the forwards at least sort of drop back their meterage, and they're the ones who usually make around your 40 tackles a game. But every starting forward to run for 100 metres, to make at least 30 tackles, and against a forward pack that we've been wrapping for 2-3 years.
I feel like they they came into the game knowing it because they had Corey
Allen
on the bench and another back on the bench who's just escaped me. So I think the rev up would have been that they would have wanted a lot out of the starting forward pack. But the second half was
Corey Allen. You're thinking of?
Yeah, there was someone else, wasn't there? It was just Corey. Maybe thinking of Drew as well. Drew ended up starting, but I think he was named on the bench. Anyway. They were good, and but they got better and better as game worked. I think, as Ollie said, Kiri's support play is so important to that team, and becomes scarier when you get Manu.
Especially when Teddy's not there.
Yeah.
Well, also, when Teddy was there early, a lot of the balls that Kiri was getting on the back of were from Tedesco. They seemed to be forming like a little bit of a sort of a partnership there, but Kiri was able to keep it up and keep it. There was brilliant as well when... it was Suaalii when he took that kick from about 20 out from the Roosters line, got it to Tupou, and Tupou was pretty much splits through the Parramatta defence, and Kiri was there, and he ended up scoring, I think, or he got close to scoring.
I think it went to Walker and then back to Kiri, and they scored.
Oh, that's right, but like he's just there. He's always there, and it's weird because we're talking about a 5'8" who's usually your first receiver in a lot of plays, but it's working. He's probably not the bloke you'd think of either who'd be running up in support for his players, but that I wouldn't say it changed the game because I think the Roosters still win, and I think Parramatta were pretty poor, but it did probably boost their lead up a bit.
The only
very influential.
We haven't wrapped yet that I do want to make a point of wrapping is Gutho. Not just from the point of view of giving him points, but maybe we do. But
he saved 2 tries on his own, I'm pretty sure.
It would have been 40 if he's, well, it would be simple maths, but it would have been more than that because I think he saved 2 and he cut down a couple of other chances. He is... You can't knock him. He's one of the, if not the hardest working fullback in the game. And
well, that first try, I was on Radley. I had $5 on Radley at $48.
Not many people.
And he's fucking smacked him and knocked the ball out.
Not many people stopped that.
I was not happy.
And then the next one where he held up the bloke over the line, was it Collins? It was,
and then he turned one of the centres or the wingers on their back and over the sideline.
So I thought he was absolutely fantastic, and the madness around this X Factor player. There's plenty of other spots for X Factor players going. Like he's just let him be the custodian and look after his line.
They want someone with blistering pace. That's what that's basically what they're trying to say. And where they crowbar someone like that
Blake is shopping himself around suggests they're probably more looking for I'd probably love Jack White.
No, I dare say
come and play centre.
I dare say Gutho is probably looking to move to the centres, to be honest. And they're trying to blood a young fella. For everything I've heard, it's Jaden Campbell that they're looking at to come and play fullback, but someone like that, I think that's the style of player they're looking for. Someone with a bit of extra footwork, that bit of extra pace off the mark, and can sort of break a tackle or leave someone behind. But
as I said, the thing in common with these first 2 games to talk about is the back half of both we saw the best of 2 very good teams, and it starts becoming scary signs. If they get that all go back together, get Manu back this week. Apparently Crichton's back training. So when you talk about Kiri's support play, I know he links a bit more with Walker, but Crichton is one of the biggest.
And Manu back
but Crichton's one of the biggest stand and offload back rollers in the game, and you have all of them sniffing around. That it becomes scary. So
does.
So big upside for the Roosters still on the back of that. So it sounds like Lindsay Collins you want to give 3 for, do you?
That was my pitch, I thought he was tremendous, especially when the hard work needed to be done. He was the one that was busting tackles and making massive metres through the middle of the field. I had a couple of nice offloads there as well, which I think led to points down the track. And then I had Daniel Tupu for 2. He was actually the leading running meters with 290 odd.
Yep.
As well as he made plenty of tackles and scored a nice try jumping over the top of his wing counterpart. And then I had either Nat Butcher or Kiri for the 1.
We got to go Kiri, right? We've been
2 tries.
I'm happy to
actually, Butcher did make 40 odd tackles.
I think he did make 40 odd tackles and about 150 metres.
I'm happy to go Kiri, and I want to give it, like I said, honourable mention to Gutho, honourable mention Paulo
Nat
as
Butcher.
well.
Yeah, Paulo.
Thought,
He's been tremendous this year. He's come back a different player.
I think he will. He's now a great Supercoach option.
He's averaging 90, I think, in Supercoach.
He busts 7 or 8 tackles a game. He'll score a try most weeks. And given I was just looking at ways to crowbar Joey Manu into my team, he might be 200k cheaper. But anyway, we'll get to that later. Finish on that? Sound good to you?
Yeah, well, I think you might want to move on to a team that could be making you feel a little bit better about your Tigers in a few weeks, possibly.
Yeah, let's get to that.
If this certain team
yes,
continues
we can.
on
After
their
I get some beers.
Okay.
All right, so 6 o'clock on Friday. What Para hit 130 and declared or something? They were not Para, Penrith.
Yeah.
53-12 down at GIO Stadium. What'd the stats say, Barn?
It's 2 tries to 9, 2 out of 2 conversions, played 8 out of 9. 1 out of 1 field goal attempts for Penrith. 23 out of 43 sets, played 37 out of 46. 770 plus running metres and 170 plus post-contact metres for Penrith. 2 line breaks to 7, 20 tackle busts to 51, 8 offloads to 10, a forced dropout from both teams. No 40-20s, 346 tackles played, 281. 4 ruck infringements to 2, 2 inside the 10 against Penrith. 6 penalties conceded to 4, 13 errors to 10. A sin bin to Penrith. Hawira Naira made 44 tackles. Yo made 38. Tomoko made 129 running metres and Brian To'o with 235. Targo with 142 Supercoach points. Cleary with 124. And then you had 5 other Penrith players before you got to Tapane on 61.
Explains why Tango's so expensive these days. Yeah, Ollie, Gunn, what do you think?
That is his best game since he started, I think. It's probably the best game he's ever played.
I think I was trying to think of an analogy and I found one. I think Canberra's defence has more gaps in it than a before model for a Colgate ad, to be honest, because like that was just like some of the plays there, they were literally, it was like 5 metre rule. It was like it was still COVID social distancing for them. Ricky's probably very glad that the Raiders aren't based in Canberra, aren't based in Sydney. Otherwise, his job would be probably under more scrutiny.
He's probably also very glad he's fucking piss mates with some of the prominent News Corp journalists. But
I mean, I just sort of want to say this, and I know multiple times I've sort of shut on Ricky Stewart and how I think Canberra should probably move on, and it's getting too long. Well, this is exactly what I'm talking about. And a lot of Canberra fans say, oh, we're happy finishing 7th or 8th or just scraping into the top 8 every year. Well, that's the thing. If you keep a coach around for so long and you're not consistently hitting the heights of a top 4 or even winning a premiership during that period, you're going to keep hitting your ceiling and you might be fine with that, but there is going to come a time where it just completely drops off, especially when you're only sort of just making the 8 every year. And we're also talking about a coach who had players' wives going on into their Instagram story like a couple of years ago or whatever it was, talking about how they didn't want him as the coach. But
he's now their best player. Yeah,
well, it's funny how that happens. But also, I don't know, I feel like they're not going to sack him or anything. I'm convinced they won't. They've recently re-signed him.
He's the least sticky in the game. He's Teflon Rick, but he, especially down there, I think, yeah, you're right. We've seen Bulldogs and Bruce Bulldogs and Parrot all pretty happy to brush him, but I think it's pretty clear. We saw through what happened with Bateman and Williams. Once you get on there, on Ricky's bad side, there's not an easy way back. Yep. But obviously, if you look at Ricky's good side, I'm sure he's a fantastic human. He does a lot of charity work. I'm sure he's a great bloke. Like I have nothing personal against him, but I think you're right in what you're saying. And then Canberra fans are mortified that I suggested they're the gatekeepers of that 7 and 8 spot. Yeah. But they'll be lucky to be gatekeeping the top 15 at the moment.
17th or 18th spot at the moment, the way they're playing.
And I can see at least what they've done is they've tried to nip this Whiten thing in the bud now. They've gone tabled a massive offer now because he's after money. He's got it to keep him, because I could see it becoming just a cloud where where Angry Ricky comes out all year. There's a rift in the change room again. Shit hits a fan. People aren't trying, and it just gets worse and worse, which is not an ideal thing for a team that's looking at running 16th at the moment.
If you don't hear anything out of Whiten until round 10, he's not staying there.
Well, that's the thing, yeah.
So basically, they've come and given him their best offer. And if he takes it before round, you'll hear before round 10 if he's staying at the Raiders.
Yeah, we might hear tomorrow.
He'll just accept it.
We might hear tomorrow, absolutely. But if he gets a nice offer at Bondi to come and take Swaley's spot for 2 years, well, there it is.
Anyway, well, a game of football did happen, at least for Penrith. It didn't really happen for Canberra. They were still in the dressing sheds. But one thing, just looking at the stats as well, one thing I want to bring up, and specifically for Canberra as well, because I've brought this stat up a few times over the past couple of years, and it's when like a very limited number of players are actually getting over 100 running metres. Usually there's at least half the team, it's a couple of players from the backs, a couple forwards, getting at least 100 running metres. Canberra had 2 players over 100 running metres in this game. They're Tomoko and Tarpany, and I think Tarpany was probably their only good player. And
in fairness, I think there was about 25 minutes where they didn't touch the ball.
Of course, and that's another thing. But the reason I bring it up is because when I've brought this up over the past couple of years, it has generally been Canberra, which is a weird... I don't know exactly where to pinpoint for that, but...
Just on those 2 blokes, they were the only 2 blokes that turned up, set after set, tackle after tackle, and continually had a go. Well, Tomoko's done it all season, and so's Tarpany. And they've had a couple of blokes jump in here and there with the likes of Horsburgh doing it occasionally, and Gula, I think he had a game or 2 where he's done it. But nobody else is really contributing, especially not set after set.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of my notes here are pretty much Penrith's tries that they scored, but I don't think we really need to go over the specific tries. I think, for example, because the Canberra were literally just that horrible. It was just one of those games where it's hard to really dissect certain things. I think Targo was great. Tungo
was fantastic
for Penrith. He really stood out for me, I think, in this game. I think he got a couple of tries or a couple of assists or something in there as well.
He got 2 or both. Or
just while you're looking at so the last thing on Canberra is... We're critical, and Gump, when he has been a show, he's critical of the Dragons' size and speed as well. Canberra are a slow team.
Very slow team.
Yeah. I think Tomoko's probably... and they're missing Savage. So,
Chris as well has got a bit of pace.
Chris is sharp enough. Tomoko's sharp-ish, and they're missing Savage.
But Chris is still trying to find his way at the back, and it's no help when you're consistently on the back foot and they're just picking you apart.
But the rest of them can't outpace opposition backs. The kick returns, therefore, are getting met 5 to 10 metres before everyone else. They can't outmuscle a lot of them, so they're just getting rolled over, and the forwards aren't getting on the front foot. So you're starting backwards, but then the result of that is, and the bench isn't adding anything. And then you look at realistically how many of their forwards would make other teams' starting lineups. Tarpany.
Not many.
And you'd argue Hudson Young.
Papali'i, when he's back and fit. Whatever.
He's still a bit part player. And then they've got Fogarty's a fine, like I said, he's a more than capable tradesman, good kicker, can get a good team around the field, but we know
he's not pulling defences apart.
To win games off, Andrew Johns has talked about this, to win games off the back foot as a halfback is the biggest task in the game. It's a sign of a champion. But even when they're on the front foot, they're not pulling teams apart. They are not causing their only point of attack becomes Whiten. It's how can I either isolate Hudson Young against an A defender or put a kick behind line for him.
Well, this was...
both tries were grubbers. They're both grubbers off through that. Or get Whiten into a bit of space where he can use his
Hudson Young barge over and a Hudson Young fall on a grubber that went in behind the line. It was the absolute epitome of what I'm talking about. And even against the Sharks a couple of weeks ago when they did win, if you go back and have a look at all the points, it was directly from Sharks' errors or a crash play and fall over the line. Horsburgh ran through twice, and White, I think Young did as well. So there's 3 tries there that they scored that were just crash plays, and the Sharks' defence wasn't good enough. So
well, you look at both of Canberra's tries here. The first one was off of a scrum play, so half the defence is taken out of the play, and I think it was 10 metres from the line. And then you had the second try was off of Dylan Edwards knock on, but it was off the Edwards knock on as well. Like they were given that position for the grubber in behind as well. So realistically, you get that it's not necessarily like Canberra. I don't want to say they didn't earn their tries, because if you score a try, you earn it. But they didn't really have to work too hard for those tries. They kind of came down to Penrith having a small lapse in judgment. So that's really worrying, I guess, for the Raiders as well, because they're not even really scoring scoring points off of their own backs. It's coming off of the defence. So thank God for Ricky, a certain other team exists. But anyway, for now, who knows?
Penrith came out with a point to prove, I thought, and a clear plan to use the ball. They went through the middle pretty quickly, but then straight away went to the edges, and the ball movement was some of the best ball movement I've seen all year. They were just continual passes across to one side of the field, back inside, back it out again, and Taruva came up with a bit of magic there to score a nice little try on his own, as well as being put away for one early in the game, and the Raiders were really on the back foot. You mentioned the fortunate tries I thought that went towards Canberra. They realistically probably could have been held to nil in this game because they didn't provide a great deal. And yeah, the tries, they weren't just coming from a certain edge. They were scoring, Penrith were scoring everywhere and anywhere at different times during the game. They definitely went out to attack that spaced out defence, which I mentioned the week before. The metres in between the centres and the halves and the wingers for this Canberra defence is that spaced out. It's not funny. And they act like they're spaced out, like they're dead set, stoned off their head. They've got a bag of Doritos and just walking around going, "What are we doing? Where are we going? I know I have something to do. What am I meant to do? Tackle that bloke? Ah, fuck it. Couldn't be bothered."
Hey, it's Canberra. It's legal.
Yeah, true. It's the Canberra's bench had little to no impact apart from probably Starling and Horsburgh, who were okay, but realistically didn't do a great deal. Papali was decent. Young was okay. Hawira Naira I thought was pretty good. But, Tapane was far and away their best player. Tomoko tries hard every single week. And you got to give it to him just on the amount of effort that he puts in. But he's not blowing holes in in any defence anytime soon, which is what you want out of your centres. So, Crichton had a very poor game, obviously. Ended up with about 10 Supercoach points, I think, for the one try he scored.
I know it's not always on him, but he has these games that it half feels like a foot's involvement now. But they'll get winning and they'll get going.
Got himself sent to the bin from repeated infringements. I can't believe on the group chat. Oh, what was the phantom send-off for? Mate, you've given away 24 penalties in the last 10 minutes.
Of all the games
on your own line.
They had the ref turn up that loud. It was like, you've been told 7 times. Dum-dums.
I think it's the Ken Steffen medal at the end of the year for good work in the community, isn't it? I think Stephen Crichton should get it for doing everything he could to give Canberra a chance in this game.
Nice little grubber got him a try, but the rest of the side, even their bench were good, the Penrith side. Young fella off the bench, Lindsay Smith, I thought he was really good in the middle of the field.
He's had
got a future, big tall boy. You've still got some filling out to do as well, so he could be a weapon a couple of years down the track, I would imagine. Got really involved in the middle of the field as well. Leota and Sorensen had a really big impact as well at different times. Luai and Edwards were pretty good, but Brian Toto and Taruva were great. They absolutely terrorised the defence out there.
Sorensen's so good at being Scott Sorensen. Because his ability to come in, you've already got Yo using his feet through the middle, but then he comes in and skips and dances a little bit.
Absolutely, backs up.
Puts
got a bit of an offload as well.
He's gold for them now.
And the Penrith's best, the best four realistically. Hoskins and Yo were probably the best forwards
They've answered their back row question because Hoskins now has to start. He puts out a mountain of work. He gets into the grind, but he's also got footwork.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Strong enough to,
and he's got some good leg speed too. He's actually really quick over the first 10 metres or so.
They score tries. Those sort of burrowing, sort of back rowers. And they will get Liam Martin back, I assume this week.
I think he's back this week. Yeah.
That's great signs. But sometimes, I think the most important thing for Penrith is sometimes when you're clunky, just blowing some geeks off the field cleans every valve out, and everyone feels good.
And it was pretty smooth. There wasn't that much ball that hit the ground.
That's right. Everyone's timing suddenly better, and everyone's.
A couple of times they got turned around.
Kenny and Luke have better service, and all of a sudden everything feels much cleaner, and I think that's a good sign for them.
Yeah, a couple of times they got caught in the corners, but the ball movement out of their playmakers was fantastic. I said Hoskins and Yo were fantastic, but Cleary and Tago were clearly the best two on the field. They were brilliant.
You talk about the sort of the link-up play and the connections in that Roosters game, but in this one, and I know they were up against a bunch of used car salesmen, so maybe that's what highlighted it, but Cleary and Hosking I think they had a really good connection. And Hosking was amazing, but obviously the service he was getting from Cleary, like he was just putting him through perfect gaps, and the gaps were 20 metres wide, but still, he put him through them. And
I hate we are directly comparing apples to apples because he was doing that for Garner. Garner just wasn't quite that sharp enough to. And Garner
was more Luai too, though. Garner was on the left edge as well.
True. So and there's a little bit. They were just happy to sit back and smash Garner. So being on the right suits, and Liam Martin coming back on that left would be great.
I dare say Martin will go back to the right, and they'll probably push Hoskins to the left. But
yeah, but at least that gives something another point of attack that they can work
absolutely.
With,
so both good leg speed, strong defenders.
What was the bet you had with that Canberra fan? That was $100.
$7 to high $100. So I'm feeling pretty good about myself now.
Yeah, I wonder how all the
I haven't revisited the Canberra forums. You'd have to advise me.
Well, there was a There was a commenter saying that Madge was going to severely improve Canberra's defence, and they're the first team this year to concede the 50. So
profile may be deleted by the time we get back there. But I thought Targo was the best player on the field. Realistically, his footwork and pace was tremendous out on that left-hand side, and he broke him apart time and time again. He actually passed the ball to Taruva for a try as well, which was nice, because actually, against my better judgment, I did end up backing them both. So I got a bit of money out of there. Cleary was exceptional. He deserves at least 2 points. He's probably in the question for 3, but I had him with the 2, and then I either had Yo or Taruva for the 1.
I'm happy to go with. It's a bit of a cop out because sometimes our best players miss out on points on this show, but give it to Taruva, I reckon.
Sure.
What do you reckon?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Give it to
This is probably his best game in first grade as well.
I was going to make a case for Hoskins a little bit as well.
Yeah, he's definitely an honourable mention. He was fantastic.
I think
Yo just kills
so
that
good.
middle
Yo
of the
is
field.
outstanding.
He controls it in attack. His defence is so solid for such a big sort of wiry fella. Like he still chops blokes in halves, and they don't get around him.
Even
they call him the
octopus.
The arms just come out and just fucking grab him and throw him down.
But even in that first half, it was still only 12 all. It was Yo creating those chances at the back end of that half, not anyone else. So
give it to Taruva.
What do you reckon?
Yo will get more points next week.
Famous last words.
Yep.
What? Yeah, I don't know. I'm coming around. Give it to Taruva.
Give it to Yo then.
Too much time on this game where it was men against boys, God damn it.
All right, 18 to 10. Do we have an answer?
Targo, Cleary, and
Taruva.
All right.
18-10, the Storm beat the Bunnies at Barn, and the Bunnies. Do your stats and I'll talk.
Gave this game away, I thought. 2 tries to 3, 1 out of 2 conversions for Souths, 3 out of 3 for the Storm. 37 out of 48 sets played, 37 out of 44, 210 plus running metres for South Sydney. 3 line breaks apiece, 52 tackle busts for Souths, 24 for the Storm. 16 offloads to 11, 2 forced dropouts for the Storm, 0 40-20s, 369 tackles played, 409, 2 ruck infringements to 5, 2 inside the 10 against the Storm, 5 penalties conceded to 6, 11 errors to 8. Cook made 46 tackles, King with 52, Tommy Burgess with 218 running metres, and Liero with 155. Josh King with 95 Supercoach points. And another brilliant game. That bloke's brought his A game to this season. Yep. Murray with 88 and Grant with 81.
Now, my mistake with Souths, because I tipped them for minor premiers thinking my mistake was they're coming in here, they're settled, they know what they're doing, they're going to be up and going, the Souths are going to pinch 6 or 8 games at the start of the year, so they're going to get it set up, they'll get through Origin, and then Latrell will bring them all home for a wet sail. My mistake was they are just Souths. They're the same, like we know exactly what they're bringing to the table.
But they're not even the same Souths as last year.
But then this is where I'm going. So now they're doing that, but they're not. They don't even play to the left anymore. It's like they've decided,
they're not pulling defences apart the way they were last year.
Walker's had 2 okay games since I've podded him.
The last
now
2.
Put 2 games together. But not tearing teams apart. There's no flow. Latrell's just, I don't know what it is with Latrell, like whether he's just trying to be Mr. Zen or whether he just doesn't want to get hurt before Origin or what it is.
He seems to be getting involved in his end of the field more than the attacking end of the field as well.
He's doing a lot of hard work, but back 12 months ago.
But like he's trying to make breaks at the halfway line.
12 months ago, you didn't get him out of the attacking line.
Yeah, that's right.
And now he's not in it.
Pushing into two players and bumping the ball to someone else.
Yeah. Or he's just not in it at all. So whether it's a conscious thing, whether it's trying to be a Lockie Ilias team, but it feels like South's best players are Campbell, Graham, Ilias on the right, Keon again on the right, and then Murray, Campbell, Murray, Cook, and Burgess.
Yeah.
Beyond that, the rest are all just there. They're going to beat the shit teams, but I'm starting to feel more and more they're just. But in a comp
you'll
where
see them start pulling teams apart. Eventually, I would imagine.
There will be. Well, they're either going to have to change, or they're just trying to nurse all these blokes into Origin without too much damage, and hopefully come with a wet sail. I'm not quite
Melbourne
sure what
did
it
a
means.
really. I noticed it and I watched it pretty hard. They went out of their way to terrorise Ilias in this game.
Yeah.
They did not give him a minute's peace from the start of the game until the end of it. Every time the ball went anywhere near him, there was somebody in his face, so he had no time to work and create anything on that right edge. It was generally just a grab and throw out to Campbell Graham and do your best.
Yeah.
And they moved Keon from the edge to the middle and back out to the edge, and that obviously interrupted what was going on in and around Ilias as well. But Melbourne really went out of their way to pressure Ilias in this game.
Yeah, and I didn't think...
it came through your Munsters and your Josh King.
Well, it was... Again, this Melbourne aren't anything special, and fuck me, they're offside all game. God damn it, they were fucking offside all game. Munster never was onside. There was times there he's going, Cam, you're offside, and run up and make a tackle anyway. And I think they pinned him twice.
Don't worry about it, Cam. You'll be right.
But I think they pinned him like twice. They picked him twice in 2 sets, and then the rest of the game, it's sweet. On their own line, they're 4 blokes are there offside. Generally, you can't see it live on the TV, but all game they're offside. And no one, I'm sure Bellamy didn't whinge about that one, but the rushing just shut down Souths. King's now like an elite level back rower. He's outstanding. Katoa had a disappointing game on the back of a couple of good. Not disappointing, it was fine, but it was an outstanding. But
there wasn't that many outstanding performances.
Really,
for the
Harry
Storm,
dragged them kicking and screaming into position most of the time. He did, I think, 52 tackles on top of that. And probably if he's not in the field, he did have the try-saving tackle through the middle there. He chopped down. Was it Murray? It was one of them.
He won the game at the end of the game.
And then he won the game, yeah. So
he chopped down the winger, and when
that's the one, yeah.
Isaac Thompson, he was about to score with 2 minutes to go, and they would have been in front.
So
he came from about 20 metres away to do it.
So without him on the field, they lose. Without Munster on the field, they're not in the discussion as well. They've got the 2 best players.
Scary part is they get Hughes back. They haven't even been close to being clean with their ball playing. So if they start clicking, then they're straight back into that top 4 conversation.
I don't know what to make of their backline because no team's taken them apart again. They've had a pretty generous draw. That's it. They beat Souths and they beat Para, and they probably shouldn't have, but they've had a fair enough draw to get up and going. But
must have been a really frustrating game to watch as a South supporter, this one, because I thought Souths were well on top.
They felt in control for most of it, but
like
they're just missing.
Yeah.
I think the elephant in the room is they're missing Latrell because he's just not. He just needs to take charge.
Oh, they were winning the middle of the field. They were breaking tackles. Cook was getting off the back of it, but they'd only ever sort of half break a tackle and then it'd get shut down.
Yeah.
They'd get to an edge and the scramble defence would push them over the edge, or they'd shut the play down, and then they'd get lost for a tackle or two, rather than going straight back to that continual, back through the middle. Spread it again, back through the middle, spread it again. They seemed very disjointed for parts of this game. And, as I mentioned, they harassed the life out of Ilias, which really made a big difference to the South's attack. Their left-hand key players are just not getting involved enough in this game. Walker got involved, but it was down the right-hand side again, and he's not really commanding anybody to come with him on the left-hand side. He's trying to sort of do it all himself, and he's not having a lot of support, whether it's back rowers or Latrell inside, outside him, which you need. You need to be able to create 2 or 3 different points of attack to make the defences. Because the defences are too good these days. If you go on 1 out or even 1 support player, they get 3 players in front of you and they just shut it down. Yeah. It's just the way that it happens, unless someone has a completely bad miss and you just stroll over, which did happen once in this game as well. But
Ollie, you got any dad?
Yeah, well, I think really South should have. I don't know how they didn't win this game purely through what they were doing going through the middle, because Burgess was outstanding. Murray was Murray every week, and Keon was great as well. And other than Josh King, really, there weren't really any standouts, I don't think, for Melbourne.
Loureiro, I can never say his name right. I think he had one of his better games.
Yeah, I just think that the way that they weren't getting off of the back of what the Fords were doing, that work that the Fords were doing, they weren't getting on, getting up on the back of that. And a stat here that I've got that's sort of mind-boggling as well. Melbourne missed 52 tackles in the game. Souths missed 24 as well. Everything statistically really sort of points to South Sydney winning that game. But again, it was the Fords laid. Well, you look at a team like Brisbane, right? The Fords laid the platform, and the backs then just absolutely kill the opposition. And South Sydney's Fords were doing exactly that in this game, but the backs that you bring up Latrell as well, this game was probably perfectly set up for some Latrell magic at different points mattered in throughout this game. As I said, the Fords were doing their work.
He only plays the last 15 minutes of every game.
But that was the trend last year as well. I don't even think he's doing that, because last year he would at least accumulatively
10 or 15
10 or 15 throughout the game.
But he'd at least have a try assist, or he'd be bumping a couple of blokes just burrowing to the line, if not scoring himself. Yeah.
But, yeah, there was... And I think Burgess as well was the one who stood out for me. Just some of the metres he was gaining just through hit-ups. He was gaining like at least 10 metres per hit-up, and then there weren't really any backs calling for it or any really quick play the balls, which you'd think with Damien Cook there, maybe a dart from... And I'm not trying to shit on Damien Cook here, because I think he's actually had one of his better starts to the season this year in recent years, but getting off the back of that a bit more, maybe from a quick play the ball or trying to spread it quickly out to the edges like Souths have done in the past, but I just didn't see enough of that. They were laying the platform down, but they just weren't picking up on it. And Melbourne, at the 52 missed tackles, they were giving them plenty of chances, but it just wasn't happening.
I think what you've seen there is a point I've got here is that Souths weren't playing direct enough after it came from dummy half. You notice at the start of the game, there was a nice little interchange with Ilias and Walker for Walker to score the try, and it was direct. It was run at the centres and the second rower, and they went in and Walker scored. Everything I saw after that, especially on that left-hand side, was cooked to Walker, and Walker would either dig into the line himself and just hold the ball, or it was just automatically a cut-out pass to Tass out on the left-hand side. And then where do you go from there? You've got one guy on your outside.
The defence waits for it.
The defence is charging in at you from outside, from inside out, and you just shut down and stuck in a corner. So you need to. They just weren't straightening up enough directly after that ball from dummy half.
You see a lot with, and it was really noticeable last week in a couple of these sort of games where you get into these corners and then players just do circles. Circles, oh shit, and then just throw it back to the middle and they get pinned exactly where they just played the ball. And it happened to Souths. It happened to Tigers every week. It happened it was very noticeable in another game on the Sunday, and I can't remember what it was. I'll get to it. But that's the proof in the pudding there from what you're saying. Yeah
but it's either, if you're going to go, obviously there's times where you can go the one-out run and try to beat someone with footwork and then you'll score. But you need to have shapes on your inside and outside.
Actually, it happened a little bit to Penrith in the first half, and they got
it did. And Taruva got away with that try where he put the grubber in behind.
Penrith might have been I was thinking of.
Bounced around a little bit, but... yeah, I really think they need someone straight, whether it's a back rower taking the ball before Walker and then Walker trails with him and they try to work together or something like that. But, yeah, they really need to straighten up, especially on that left-hand edge, because Keon's doing the job on the right, but there's not much going on the left there, which isn't helping them, I don't think. Yeah, Eisenhuth was fantastic in this game too, I thought. There was that one run where he bumped off 3 or 4 blokes and gave the offload, and then they went down the edge, and it was probably close to the try of the season. And the Coates kicks it back in for Munster to score right next to the post. Thought that was a really impressive part of the game. And Souths were on top for the last 15, 20 minutes, and if it wasn't for a Meany try saver where he knocks out AJ and then a Grant try saver in that last 5 minutes of the game, the Souths probably should have run away and won this game, but. Yeah, they saved it realistically.
There was also Isaac Thompson as well. As he's grounding the ball, his knee just goes over the sideline as well.
Yeah, that was Harry Grant wrapped around his legs, I'm pretty sure, that dragged him into touch there. And, yeah, I thought Isaac Thompson was actually pretty good in this game. Graham Burgess, I thought Sele was good on his return, working off the bench. They do need him. He'll get back into the middle of the field.
Yeah.
Keon was very good. Cook and Walker were impressive, but Murray was their best player again, I thought, which happens every week.
Me.
Yeah, shock you. Eisenhuth, Liero had really good games. Welch and Kamakamika were pretty good in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
They held their own. They were dominated a little bit, but they did hold their own. Munster and Meany were really good and caused a few problems for the further south. But yeah, King is just on another level at the moment. I don't know what's happened to him, and Harry Grant as well. He's just every time they are struggling, Harry Grant just spent there's a 10-minute period every time that Melbourne are struggling, where he just gets them into position where they need to be and sets up a try.
Yeah,
there was that
happens.
one play too.
But and usually what he'll do is make a 10-metre run to get them there, and then they'll play the ball, and the next minute he's the one dragging everyone else to the line. Yeah.
There was, I think it was when Warbrick scored, and it was that dart from dummy half from about 10 out, and he got to the line, and whereas a lot of players would probably try and force the try, he sort of wriggled his way out of the tackle, turned around and got the offload to get the ball downfield, and Souths weren't really expecting it. You can see Alex Johnson sort of shit himself as it's going towards Warbrick, and he's starting to get the wobbles as he's going back, and that was all off the back of an instinct play from Harry, and you wouldn't usually see that from hookers going from the dart from dummy half. They're instantly thinking, I'm going to go in and try and dive over and score here, whereas him off the defender, turn around and get the pass.
Warbrick's starting to get it. He's starting to come good, and he's getting his physicality a bit better, and he'll be fine.
He's getting a few more options as well, which always helps. Had Harry Grant, man of the match, Josh King, 2 points, and then Cameron Murray I had as the one, but can argue about that.
I would possibly maybe argue Burgess. It depends. Murray, if you want to go for the defence, Burgess, if you want to go for the attacking work in the middle.
Yeah, give it to Burgess.
We've brushed Yo and Murray in consecutive matches here.
Barney's changed over the off-season.
Hey, I gave it to Murray. You convinced me.
Tommy was good.
I convinced you too easily, though.
Tommy was fantastic. But, yeah, what did he make? 53 tackles, I think, Murray?
Yeah.
And 140 metres as well. But
has Tom Burgess been the most... I'm trying to think the most consistent Burgess throughout his whole career. I think he's had the longest career out of him, but you got to think consistency.
I think for 8 years he's done exactly what Tom Burgess does every year.
Whereas of course Sam peaked above
as well. First 2 or 3 years of his career he was absolutely killing it. Tommy.
Also probably one of the more underrated forwards in the game. I mean we rate him every week, but just in general, I don't think enough people talk about him.
I'd like to see him push the offload a little bit more, but.
But that's a common theme across most props. Props aren't really taught,
But he always gets through. He always seems to get his nose through the line, and it's that kind of guy that you want trying to promote the ball.
Yeah.
But,
all right.
But he did drop it a lot a couple of years ago as well, so they've probably been told not to fucking do it.
I honestly believe he'll have a game this year he'll score 2 or 3 tries, because there'll be a game where they're getting right.
Yeah, he will.
And he's that third man in that Murray.
He almost scored twice in this game, I'm pretty sure.
He's that third man in that Murray.
Millimetres away from scoring at one point.
He's got the trio with Cook and Murray where they just love that punch, and he'll barrel over a couple of times at some point this year. Hopefully while he's still in my draft side. Saturday kicked off with a 32-all draw. I believe the first one since 2020.
Yes.
And it was these 2 teams in that
game? Newcastle and Penrith.
Oh, I thought it was Newcastle, man.
It was Newcastle.
Okay.
Yeah,
it was the week we came back from the season suspension.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
But again, and again, this round, apart from the 3 shitty teams, all went down. Every game was alive with 5 minutes to go. It's been unreal. It's been so good. This was an entertaining enough game.
Yeah.
Lockie Miller probably wished he had the first 10 minutes of the game over again, but Barney, what does the stats say?
6 tries apiece, 4 out of 6 conversions from both teams. A missed field goal and a 2-point field goal from Manly. 0 out of 2 field goals and a missed 2-point field goal as well from Newcastle. 39 out of 45 sets played, 37 out of 44. 8 line breaks from both teams, 31 tackle busts to Manly, 49 to Newcastle. 7 offloads to 8, 1 forced drop out to 2. No 40-20s. I don't think there was one kick this weekend, actually. But we'll
Did Reid kick one again?
Oh, actually, Reid. Yeah, Reid
kicked one.
Anyway, we'll get there. 357 tackles, played 402. 2 ruck infringements to 1, 1 inside the 10 against Newcastle, 7 penalties conceded to 5, 5 errors to 7, a sin bin from both teams. Jakey made 49 tackles. Can't read my own handwriting. That's fantastic. Somebody from the other team made 49 also.
My favourite.
Turbo got Gerbo. Brayley. Can I bring up, once you're done, I'm going to bring up my point.
Anyway, Brayley made 49 tackles. Tommy made 297 running metres and Miller made 282. Young with 148 Supercoach points and 4 tries, I think it was. Tommy with 106 and Marzu with 102. Back-to-back hundreds for Marzu.
All right. And I don't think it's going to finish anytime soon.
Looking good.
It's his 3rd game this week. Making some money this week.
So, yeah, I'm going to call Child Services in to do a retroactive investigation because week after week, both the Brayley brothers are getting at least 40 tackles and they have been doing for at least 5 years. When they were growing up, did their father just get them out the back and just run full pelt at them over and over and over again until they stopped getting injured and could tackle him? Like what? Like
probably.
I listened to 10 minutes of the continuous call team on Sunday Arvo, and it was their father.
Really?
Yeah, and
you know what it probably was? They probably had
he coached them through. He coached them in some of the younger age groups. But
they probably had like a border collie or something out the back, and they were just running around trying to tackle the fucking dog. No, he's younger brother. They're a couple of years apart.
But yeah, anyway, so they they were talking about that. Like he was.
So pretty much he teach him how.
And there's a 3rd Taj. I think Taj is the Sharks. Apparently
he's the youngest one.
Really?
Yeah.
Can he tackle?
Well. He's a hooker as well.
Oh my God! Well, so what you're telling me basically is they'd go to footy training, they'd go to a game, the dad would absolutely whoop their asses getting them to tackle, and they'd go home and he'd say, out the back, boys, I got a prize for you. Go out and there's a fucking tackle bag right there. They probably wanted it.
It was probably 2 versus 1 in the backyard, and
up
one of them just never had the ball, so he was just he was just tackling his ass off trying to get the ball off the other 2.
My young bloke can't tackle, so any tips are welcome. He can do everything else in the game, but he doesn't like tackling.
But it is just insane
he
how
tries his ass off.
2 brothers, not in the same team, so not in the same setup, haven't been for a while now, both playing hooker, both consistently making 40 tackles a game.
Don't miss a lot.
Yeah, and it's gotten to the point. Yeah, it's gotten to that point for me where it's like this has to be addressed because this isn't just a coincidence here. Like this is something's going on. But I thought Newcastle were probably the better team for the first half in this game, and a lot of it came down to discipline and holding on to the ball. I think they made 1 error in the first half.
I think Manly probably started way better.
I don't think.
First 10 minutes or so, Manly were well on top.
Yeah, I think, but it was Newcastle.
Got the sin bin.
Yeah, that sort of changed things.
Completely changed.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe not more in terms of certain, like at the start, the momentum was purely with Manly, but I think as well, sort of managing that Newcastle did that well, and a lot of it. And again,
a lot better than Manly's did.
It's just they're a hard-working team, and I was not tipping Newcastle to be that kind of team. I mean, Lockie Miller. You bring up the first 10 minutes, but other than that, this season he's been better than we've seen Ponga consistently, and he's been out injured with concussions or whatever. But like he has been so good.
Is that a throw off or what? Is he like? I'm just not getting anywhere near Olakau'atu, no, I don't know where I was. Fuck.
I'll make it up by running for 200 odd meters later. Don't worry. But
you see, if he's just backpedaling, he's like, this bloke's going to score at the 10-metre line. He goes, oh, fuck. It's not the 10-metre line.
Well, I only saw 5 minutes of Matty John's show, but he took it quite... He
did.
He copped his medicine on it. So.
Well, we talk about... obviously, meterage and certain players getting over 100 metres and whatever, and Canberra's shit effort. Well, Newcastle had 4 players get over 200 metres in this game. Miller, Young, Gagai, and Marju, and a tear rolls down my eyes. I say Marju. I mean, just
Newcastle.
And that's the problem with Newcastle. Last year, they had a couple of forwards where you'd go, okay, they're consistently putting in an effort. Frizzell was off at different times, but we put our hands up and say, what's going on with the backs? Like, the backs just weren't doing anything.
It comes from Miller, man.
I know in defence they were poor, but in attack last year as well.
This goes back to what I said about Canberra, though. It's amazing what pace does to everyone else. If you've got a lightning good bloke
they're fast, and then you've got a bloke in the middle of the field.
People suddenly go stuck and fuck, what's going to happen next? And
like Gagai's not slow. Marzu and Young aren't slow. They're big guys as well. So you give them good, clean ball, nice and early with a bit of time and space to do their job.
And speaking of the backs, I mean...
Well, and look, you going.
I was just going to say, I don't think Dom Young's getting dropped again anytime soon.
No.
Probably not.
But the whole point of all that as well is that when you've got that, you need someone them to get them in the right spot. And if you've got to give credit to Jackson Hastings as one of his actually better games.
Probably his best game of the season, I think.
He had everyone getting what they need to get at the right time to get it. And
they know exactly what they need now. Yeah. They need to, work hard in the middle of the field, and then they need good, clean service out of dummy half, which they get majority of the time out of Brayley. And then you make your decision. It's either you get Miller on the skip and a run and getting outside a defender, which just throws the whole thing into chaos, or you've got Hastings working in and around the ball with inside, outside balls and changing angles in and around the middle of the field.
I was a bit critical of him in the first couple of games because he was just dumping on, shoveling on. But I think he's got confidence, and he's got confidence in the players around him.
And his kicking game was
which makes a difference. It's a difference. You're a different player when you trust everyone else as well, as opposed to where you were. Yeah. And to see the other fucking retards he left be begging for a halfback, it's like.
Well, I've brought it up way too much.
Everyone knows. Everyone in the Sun knows it. Everyone knows the Sun. But I just want to wrap. I want to particularly because there was 2 games I was critical of him, and I want to wrap him. And for a team that I've constantly stuck the boot into for 4 years now, they are overperforming. They are trying very hard. They're playing for each other and obviously playing for their coach. So you've got to give all that credit, and that's without Ponga, who will come back in at 6, but they're going to keep being fine without him when they get him back. It'll be very interesting to see how he fits back in.
You get another one running on the other side of the field.
Well,
they might
you might just go back to being. You can just stick to the left, do your best, Kalen. Because
I dare say that's where it'll be. Because Miller's fitting in really well on the right. So
Newcastle's fullback had a pretty good game, but Manly's fullback, whose name currently escapes me, had an all right game as well. I think. Funnily enough.
He's running around at 3/4 pace, but
the thing is too, he sort of changed his game a little bit, and I know I've harped on about how
he's talked about he's trying to run now, consciously think how he runs, and I think that's
and that's probably part of it, so he can be a bit more unpredictable for sides, but also he's becoming more of a provider than a scorer. He's still scoring, not in this game, he's still scoring tries, and a couple of years ago, obviously, he's getting through a game, but I think he got.
What is he got
25 2 try assists in this one as well.
He's still learning. Best thing for him.
He'd be 26 max.
I think he's 26 max.
Ridiculous game of footy. Manly were all over it in the first 10 minutes. They were terrorising the middle of the field for Newcastle, and I thought it was just going to be a shut-up, lay-down game where they just run through the middle of Newcastle and pull them apart. And then they were hitting the edges with Olakau'atu, and on the other side with Tuolangi, who was actually playing quite well as well these days for a Tigers reject. But the sin bin, I thought, changed the game, realistically. Olakau'atu getting sin binned 10 minutes in, and then the Knights went, and they just went bang, bang. Scored 2 tries in the space of 5 minutes and evened up the scores. And then they had Dom Young sent to the bin, and they scored again. To score with when you're down to 12 men is a massive thing, and it does make a huge difference, even though Manly also scored while they were 1 short. I think it just gave them the confidence that we can score a player down, and they only got 1. Manly should have probably pressed on and maybe scored 2 or 3 tries in that period, and they didn't. There's a few errors there which didn't help them, but they just started causing so many problems for the edges of Manly. Like, their defence on the edges was deplorable at times. They were getting turned inside out. It has a lot to do with I think Knights are a little bit quicker than what Manly are on the outside edges, and you saw it when they got turned around.
But we're back to where we were this time last year with the Manly edges.
Yeah, well, Cooler's a big out because he does have that pace.
And I think Park is a fair enough defensive centre. He's not a world beater, but he's fair enough. But we know what Harper is.
But he was really good ball in hand. But he did his defensive efforts.
And that's the thing. Young scored 4 tries. He had work to do in every try. It wasn't just dropping the ball over the line. So.
The Newcastle, as said, they were fantastic on the outside edges, and Young jumping over the top of people and brushing people off, and he looked like a well beater at different parts of this game. I think they were flattered a little bit with some pretty ordinary defence from the outside edges of Manly. I thought they probably could have shut the game down towards the back end, but they just seemed to continually make errors and defensive errors as well, which didn't help. Tom and Garrick were really good, ball in hand, as well as Harper. And they did a lot of work, but yeah, Tommy's only running around at 3/4 pace. I thought Paseka had one of his better games, and Tuolangi, Aloe was decent. I thought Bullymore was actually quite good off the bench in this game. He's a bit hit and miss though for me. And Jake and Olakau'atu were easily the best forwards for the Manly side. Newcastle's back 5 won every matchup on the field. Like they man to man, they just pulled the Manly back 5 apart. Apart from Tommy, but even then, if you match up Miller with Tommy, Miller probably wins the day. To be honest, only just, but Gagai, Mazu were fantastic. Hastings is really strong, as you mentioned. I thought Matt Croker off the bench was really good, and Leo Thompson starting was fantastic.
43 tackles.
Those boys, they're big, wide boys, and they're doing a job, which we did mention they needed some help with the Saifidi boys, and they're actually outshining the Saifidi boys at the moment. Frizzell and Brayley were really good, and Jack Johns did a decent job in the middle there as well, which, he probably deserves a few more minutes. And, Miller.
He may well get him. He may end up absorbing Kurt Mann's minutes as we get further into the year.
Yeah. Miller and Young were brilliant. They were the best 2 players on the field.
Anything else here, Alan?
Hard to go past Miller and Young, especially Young getting the 4 tries, and I think Miller was absolutely fantastic, has been all year.
I had Young with the 3 just because of the 4 tries.
And he, as you said, he did have to do work to score those tries.
Miller with 2, and then either Mazu or Olakau'atu for the 1.
Give it to Mazu.
Yeah.
We're very, very winger heavy tonight.
That'll change.
We were bullish about Manly early on, and obviously very negative on Newcastle. Where are they sitting in comparison? Are they about par, as a score suggests? Or
Manly's a bit under par.
Do you think Newcastle
in this
more
game
upside?
anyway?
I'm starting to get a feel that Newcastle are the new Canberra, that sort of 7 or 8. Newcastle.
I think you want to see Schuster in there for another 3 or 4 games.
Yeah.
Because Cooper Johns didn't offer a lot in this game, especially combining with the outside backs and Tommy. So there's
Weeks
that
end up
which
playing,
can
20 minutes
end up
around
playing sort of centre and played a bit of hooker, I think, at different stages.
Maybe Manly are just like a bit like South. Maybe Manly are just Manly with Tommy.
Well, when Manly have been impressive, it's been their forwards that have been really taking up the battle, especially in defence, and belting the opposition forwards into sort of a bit of submission, to be honest, and then running through the middle of the field, which they didn't really do in this game. They did it for the first 10 minutes, and there was a 10-minute period in the second half, sort of towards the back end of the game, where they started to sort of really lift their intensity, but their intensity in this game was nowhere near where it should have been. Newcastle, in my opinion, are well and truly overperforming, but with the guys that are there, no, I think it is. To be honest, if these
Fitzgibbon's having his best season in ever. We're 5 games in.
Croker, Leo Thompson,
they're all. And
you got Frizzell, who is on his day is one of the best back rowers running around. But once you start
respecting each other and you're winning these sort of games, or at least dragging yourselves through them, it grows. Like
Brayley, who'll make 1 million tackles in the middle. So I think if they can keep their middle intact against most oppositions, then they're going to cause problems.
Well, I think what they are, like I said, they've sort of become that Canberra team where you have to beat them through the middle and then and earn the right to then score points, and then you've got should I say Ponga, but you've got a halfback that's not going to just let you run over him because
they've got a lot more points in them than we thought.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's a sort of a perfect storm everything they've found. They've actually gone and found a spine that makes sense in a modern game as opposed to some other clubs which we're about to.
And I do see there'll be games where they will get beaten through the middle of the field, and they probably may even get trounced at different points where they just get run over through the middle of the field.
But like if they played Canberra next week, they could put 30 on Canberra.
Yeah, absolutely. 40, 50.
Because they'll more than match them, and then they won't concede 18 points against Canberra.
Wouldn't think so.
They score more. Well, cool. All right. No, tick to them.
A tick to them, but kind of begrudgingly, because in the off season, They got Miller, they got Hastings, and they got Marju.
Yeah, I suppose they did.
From our clubs. Seriously.
Actually, I just realised, all this carrying about Suwali, wasn't it convenient they managed to sign Dom Young? Mysteriously, within about 2 weeks of Suwali not being there.
Hey, the Roosters have still not confirmed that they've signed Dom Young.
Oh, really? I thought
they haven't.
But Young said that they have. Isn't Young on record of saying it?
I think, well,
Young, the one that told the dressing room?
Young's told the dressing room pretty much, but the Roosters haven't confirmed it, so I don't know. Usually they confirm it by now, that's all. That's just a bit weird.
Fair enough.